Go ahead,
Good
Vivian.
evening, everyone. As a preliminary matter, I am Vivian Shu, Personnel Board Chair. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Rick Lanetta,
Here, yes.
Joe Herlihy,
Here.
staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Chuck Murphy Ramboletti,
Here.
Tatiana Swanson.
Here.
Thank you. And for anticipated speakers who are on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. Lee Newman, Director of Planning and Community Development.
Present.
Thank you, Lee. Welcome. I wanted to let you know that this open meeting is being conducted remotely consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the outbreak of COVID-19. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and that you should take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by recording. Chuck and Tatiana, would you start off with our agenda?
Sure. Thank you all. Welcome. And thanks, Lee, for joining us. So the first item on the agenda, we have a new position description, which Lee Newman has drafted for a position within her department that started with the administrative coordinator position, or I'm sorry, administrative specialist position. And due to operational needs, it has evolved over time within her department. The needs for responsibilities and the complexity of the job has evolved over time to where now there's a new need for a completely different position, which would qualify as reclassification of the current position. So Lee and I have been working over the past, well, this has actually gone on since the class and comp study itself. We had conversations with the vendor about some of the duties that had been begun to evolve in that position. And we decided that it wasn't part of the class and comp study at the time, and that it would be something we would address following the completion and implementation of the classification and compensation study. So with that, Lee has taken a look at the former job description, made the desired edits and changes. I have reviewed it and run it through our new tool that we are with our new classification plan, and assigned it a grade accordingly, and come up with the following with the new job description you have in your packets and a new grade for that position, which is a grade 6. It was formerly a grade 5. Lee is here and she can speak to some of the operational need and some of the specific changes that this new position has as former position. With that, I'll turn it over to Lee, and then I can speak more after a little bit about what I specifically saw as part of the reclass in terms of scoring.
Sure. So this position actually for the ZBA has been a long-standing position. And it started out really as, I would say, clerical support to the ZBA. And then it evolved into some more of administrative support in terms of just processing, I would say, the applications that were being filed in front of the ZBA. But it became clear that the ZBA really needed some more professional staff level support comparable to what's currently provided to the planning board for the permits that they were issuing. And so this basically proposes to provide them with that additional support, which is a practical matter, has been provided to them during the COVID, since COVID basically came into play. And so essentially the position now involves a professional level person trained in the planning field, where the individual is actually involved in meeting with applicants, talking about projects, identifying the zoning relief and the process that will be required in terms of coordination with the building inspector, is reviewing applications when they come into the ZBA for their completeness, is conducting site visits at the properties and sharing videos and photographs of those sites with the ZBA in preparation for the meeting, is participating at the ZBA meetings as a resource, and is actually assisting in the drafting of decisions that the ZBA issues. And then after the ZBA has actually followed through and implemented its decisions and its permits, this individual is coordinating with town staff to ensure that the conditions that the ZBA has placed on this permit have in fact been met. I say additionally, the individual at the time the application comes in is coordinating across town departments to get effective reviews, to provide input to the ZBA from engineering, building, or fire and police as is applicable to the situation. So the position has really evolved from an individual who was providing clerical support in terms of accepting an application and making sure statutory timelines were complied with and minutes were taken of meetings, to actually being engaged with applicants, understanding what's being proposed, providing input in terms of how the application should be put together and what zoning relief would be required, ensuring that the applications are complete, and then participating in the decision of the drafting of the decision when the ZBA is complete, and then following it through to ensure that the conditions are in fact met. And so this is basically kind of mirroring the process that the planning board receives through the planning support that it receives, and that so we've now moved the ZBA to that protocol as well.
Thank you, Lee. Is the position one that is replacing the existing position, or is this a position that is completely new and therefore a new position as opposed to a reclassified position?
This is a reclassified position, I guess. Is that the correct term, Chuck, in this circumstance? Am I using the right lingo?
Yeah, it's replacing a position. So the current position, I'm sorry, I think before I called it a different title. It's actually an administrative specialist.
Yeah.
And there's currently an incumbent in the position, and it would be replacing that position with the newly titled zoning specialist position description.
And what is the position graded at
So
in comparison?
Currently, it's a grade 5, and the new specialist is proposed to be graded at a grade 6, 1 grade above.
Vivian?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Question, if I may. Lee, the incumbent, is it incumbent moving from a grade 5 to a grade 6? Or does the incumbent go someplace else and we're actually hiring someone at a higher grade level?
No, the incumbent would go from a grade 5 to a grade 6. The incumbent is trained as a planner and is effectively providing this level of support now to the board. And so we're catching up with the level of support that's actually being provided to the board presently.
Gotcha. And as a follow-up, if I may, the duties that this person now is going to, I guess, acquire, who was doing that before?
The actual individual?
The actual individual was doing those duties before?
I would say it's a lot of these additional responsibilities this person has took on during the COVID circumstance. And so what we're trying to do really is to, I think, make the description for the position match the service that's being provided. The person has gradually taken on these added duties, was trained to do these duties. And then when COVID happened and we went to a totally remote platform and we're processing applications electronically, it became even more paramount that these duties be provided to the ZBA through this particular individual.
So are we creating a job description based on what the person is doing already? Or have you created a description of tasks that the person has to go into?
I would say it's a combination. The person is already doing some of these responsibilities.
Okay. And obviously I guess that would be the 2021 budget. I guess the grade level increase from 5 to 6 requires more money, and that was inclusive in your budget with a DSR4, or are you just administratively doing this?
I'm administratively able to do it. There's sufficient funds in my budget.
All right, cool. Gotcha. Thank you.
So you're not changing compensation schedules here, classification schedules with this position. It's going to remain in the same schedule.
It's going from a level 5 to a level 6, so there will have to be an adjustment to reflect that, although I think it's minimal.
Okay.
All right.
Correct.
One more question, if I may, Madam Chair.
Sure.
Lee, prior to COVID,
Mhm.
Before this individual took on these additional duties, who was doing the work?
We had an administrative specialist that was providing the clerical support to the ZBA.
And where is that? And where is that individual?
That individual is currently in that position, and so
That's the
that person-
incumbent, right? I think what Rick is asking is, for example, some of these additional duties that the individual took on in the role when COVID began, who was doing them in the past? For example, meeting with applicants. Was there somebody else in the department who was handling that?
Well, it was more applications would be dropped off and basically accepted. It was more of a clerical function. So what's happened here is that initially with the ZBA, applications were just filed by applicants. They would meet with the building inspector, get some information, file an application with the clerk. There was a clerical person that was basically picking those applications up and processing them. And that process really didn't work. So there needed to be more engagement with the planning staff directly with applicants. So this process where there's an individual who's meeting with applicants, reviewing applications is gradually evolved over the last 2 years, and has really became even more predominant when COVID happened.
Who was reviewing the applications before?
Yeah.
The applications were not always reviewed, or there might be a conversation with the building inspector. So the ZBA had an application. It was available online. Someone would go into the building department and they would tell them, you need to get this relief. They would fill out an application. They would see what needed to be provided. They would submit it to the town clerk. And there was just a clerical person who was essentially facilitating the work for the ZBA.
So you're saying that sorry, Rick, so I just want to clarify. So you're saying that some of these duties that were taken on in the office were things that the actual zoning board was handling?
The zoning board was handling, yes, right. And it was kind of happened over time over the last couple of years, is that those responsibilities have now been transferred down to a staff person who's providing that service.
So they've shifted from the actual zoning board members who would review things and shifted over to staff
who are basically facilitating all that work for the ZBA.
Sorry, Rick.
Madam Chair, from an HR perspective, as a purist, what we have here is some job creep. An individual was doing a job, duties were thrown onto the position. So in essence, we're going from 5 to 6, so the person will receive higher remuneration for a position really that's being created. Because once she takes that, some of her old duties go away. I'm just trying to, I see what you're doing, and it happens all the time in the real world, but I'm just curious how we're doing this, because in essence, we've kind of created on the fly a position for an individual because she's doing the work, promoted her to a grade 6 from a grade 5, and really haven't taken a step back and say, are we creating a new position at 6 for which she's eligible for and moves into? So I see, I'm okay in a sense. I just see a lot of sloppiness in terms of housekeeping. So how are we doing this?
So one of the things that I was curious about was Chuck's comment at the outset, which is, and it does happen in the corporate business world, this kind of movement, as you said. Though we've seen it in the town, right, in municipal government as well. But I picked up on something that Chuck said earlier, which was, I think, a realization, and Chuck, correct me if I'm misunderstanding what
Sure.
you said, but that in the process of assessing the new classification and compensation system, this was one of the positions that you realized was sort of out of line with what you were trying to do. So
Correct.
is this purely, a high level housekeeping situation where you're trying to align the work that someone is actually doing within the new classification and compensation system and the review? Or is this, as Rick said, a situation where you're trying to, elevate, if you will, somebody who's in an incumbent role to some enhanced duties?
Sure, I think I understand it. I think it is a bit of a housekeeping to get in line with what's accurately being done now in the position. I think over time, there could have been some creep, but it was due to operational need. And this new job description now more accurately covers what's been needed within the department.
Okay.
So yeah,
May I suggest that we call a spade and give this person a promotion to the duties that she's currently going to embody, and take her old position and make it go away, because fundamentally it doesn't exist.
Right. Right.
Is that, and that it allows Lee to do what Lee wants to do. It kind of
Right.
preserves your new system, and it kind of moves us forward. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I see what Lee's trying to do, and heck, she's got a great probably employee who's taken on all kinds of duties and is very capable and doesn't want to lose her, and it would make no sense to like play games here. But I think in terms of the system, we probably should promote the person, hold a promotion, and just eliminate what she was doing before as an entity. Now, Lee, does that make sense?
Yes, this now becomes a new position and she moves into it.
I mean, as I said, we've seen this kind of situation arise before where we've always maintained that our way of doing things is to not create a job for a person, but to create a job based on the department's needs. And so if this is the position that you need right now, Lee, that's all well and good. And so it's essentially creating a new position, redefining it, and restructuring your department. And I think that that's important. And we've always said you don't design a job around an incumbent and what a person is doing. You design a job for, if you had to go out and search for someone, you would find the appropriate candidate with the skills and experience you're looking for, which have been laid out in the job description. So.
Right. To Vivian's point, this position did not exist prior to this individual doing the work. So in essence, if she moved into that, so it's really kind of a little bit kludgy, but
and in our
it is what it is.
Lee and I had gone back and forth about, if it wasn't this person in the role, if you had to post this position brand new operationally, what would you need in that position? That's kind of how we looked at it. And it's become where it really does provide a more streamlined process for her and the board, where to have a person of this level doing a preliminary screen before things get to the board. So regardless of the incumbent, we did talk about, what truly are the needs in this, but
I would have to say, having been a attorney putting all kinds of permits and special permits before Newton authorities and Boston authorities in my job. It's hard for me to understand how you guys operated without this position, to be quite honest with you.
That's a very good question.
Okay.
It's the good news is that none of us sat on ZBA, so we didn't have to do it at the time. All right, any further questions? Otherwise, I'm happy to entertain a motion regarding this request.
You're on mute, Joe.
Well, the suspense is I was moving to approve the position. Okay.
All right,
And I'll second that.
very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Any opposed? Unanimous, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lee.
Thanks.
Lee.
Good
Thank
evening.
you.
Good luck with the rest of your meeting.
Thank you. And Tatiana and Chuck, we have up next.
Yes, up next, we have a revision to a policy number 515, which is employer contributions to a town offered retirement plan. There's a slight edit that we would like to make, and let me just pull that up. I'm sorry. So I have it highlighted in the document I sent out, but
Thank you.
the only edit is changing the amount from 1,000 to 1,500. So the town will now contribute to non-represented employees 1,500. It'll be a 1,500 match. So if the employee contributes 3,000, the town will contribute 1,500. It used to be the employee contributes 2,000, town contributes 1,000. So it's upping that amount and yeah, into the deferred compensation account. I think it's been a long time since we increased the amount in this policy, and it also does get it in line with some of the other collective bargaining agreements. The ITWA union, which is the professional and administrative positions union, recently in their last contract also increased it to this exact same amount. So
Yeah. Madam Chair?
Yes.
Chuck, a question. In most of these plans, it usually is a percentage based on the percentage of compensation. Why did you just make it 3,000? Why isn't it, 3% of, or 50% of the first 3% of compensation? Why that?
I don't know. Historically, I know it's been a flat dollar amount as opposed to a percentage.
Okay.
And it is so with all the other unions as well. Some of the other unions that have it are also a dollar amount. They differ from union to union, but just for whatever reason, historically, they've all been flat dollar amount contributions.
Okay. And do you have a sense right now what this new formula would cost the town?
I don't. I don't know. I mean, I
It'd
guess
be
it.
important to know. It would be important to know what the difference is in terms of dollars.
Yeah, I know. Dave, Kate and Dave, when proposing this, Kate had worked with Dave to cost out what if every single person who is now maxing out and getting the 1,000,
Yeah.
chose to increase the amount that they put in. So they did cost it out. I just don't have those numbers here.
Okay. I'd be curious to what the number is, because I can't imagine it being a huge amount of money.
No, it's not. And from what I remember, we don't have full participation. So everyone who's eligible it's not even nearly close to full participation.
Yeah,
one who could get this benefit doesn't take advantage of it.
yeah.
Again, they would have to elect to contribute, to increase their contribution in order to get this increased town contribution.
Frankly, I was amazed because I offered the same kind of thing and many people didn't participate and I couldn't quite figure out why.
Yeah, and it's a good benefit.
I guess it's the same all along. Okay. Gotcha. I would love to know that number though, because the
Sure.
number is going to come up in another committee of mine, I'm sure. And I'd like to know
Sure.
the number so I can like speak to it when it happens. But if you can
Sure.
find that, that'd be great.
Yes, it exists. We can dig it up.
Thank you.
Chuck, out of curiosity, what is the town participation? Just roughly.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say around 50. I remember when we looked at it, it wasn't as high as we thought it would be. We thought it would be a majority would take advantage of this, but I don't even think I think it hovers around 50.
Okay.
But the change to this policy only affects non-represented employees, which is a certain population. It's managers, all those administrative positions who are not in the ITWA, dispatch. It's not too many.
Gotcha.
Okay.
As a follow-up to Vivian, if you're going to give me the number on what the increase is, it would be good to know what percent participation
Sure, sure.
of the employee population plays this game.
Chuck, this may be a dumb question, but we are simply approving the revision to the policy. I assume other decision makers have decided to increase the town contribution by $500. Is that right? I mean, this maybe
Yeah,
goes
budget.
to Rick's
Right.
question. I mean, this has been budgeted and approved, right?
Yeah, right. The budgeting piece to it would have to be accounted for within the budgeting process. But this simply opens.
We're just
opens the
formally amending the policy to reflect what decision has already been made. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm presuming, you've raised a very good point, Joe. I'm presuming that all this has been discussed in the townwide expenses line items of the next budget year. It'd be helpful to understand that as well. So the numbers would be very helpful.
Yep.
Yeah, because if we're going to agree to the policy, we should know the number because we're going to get asked about what that means in the overall levy, and we really should know that. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions about the policy?
No.
I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the committee recommend adoption of the new language as stated in the policy, raising the participation rate of both the town and the employee.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Unanimous. Do we have any other new business?
We do not. Nothing at this time. So I know that was the chief just calling. I let him know we're opening executive session in a few minutes.
Okay, very good.
Do you want us to make a motion to adjourn this one?
Yeah, so what I
So
think
I need to, the plan is that we will be going into executive session. And so the purpose of that executive session is to discuss personnel matters related to a grievance. And I am going to call for us to enter executive session. And if we have a motion to enter executive session and then to leave executive session without returning to our open session. How inelegantly did I state that?
That was perfect. That was perfect.
I so move that we enter executive session and that we leave executive session without returning to the open meeting.
Do you need a second?
Yes, please.
I second.
Thank you.
So
Let me take
just,
that.
I'll just mention, sorry, Tatiana's the host, so maybe just if, don't be surprised if it takes just 1 minute for us to close out and open up the next.
I
Very
want to
good.
make sure the recording is, it's done and uploaded to the cloud before I'm completely out of here.
Okay.
So,
Very good.
okay.
So let me take a
Is-
roll call vote for the record to move into executive session and then to end our meeting after executive session without returning to open. Joe Herlihy,
Aye.
Rick Linetta,
Aye.
and the chair votes yes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
See
you.
you soon.
Thank you.